setting up a game. Well, pretty straightforward. We start out with, we need all our treasure cards in piles, and we need all our victory cards, and depending on the scenario you may or may not need the cursors. The cards I've set out here, we won't need them, so let's put that aside. We have a selection of 10 kingdom cards here. Some of these are used in the recommended first starter game. Others are a slight tweak on my part. There are some cards I like to use for starting games to introduce players, and then I vary it a little bit so that it keeps the game interesting and showcases different aspects of the game. We also need a trash card which comes with the game. Now, for the life of me, when I went to record this, I couldn't find my actual trash card, but the game comes with a number of spare blank cards and things which can be useful placeholders to denote where cards are being trashed. And a trash pile is simply a place where cards can be taken out of your hand permanently and they're trashed, so they're no longer in your game hand. Right, so let's have a look at these cards in more detail. Each card has something in common. Down in this lower corner here, you will find a small goldy coloured symbol with a number in it. That number denotes how much money that card will cost, and each card has one of these. The number varies from 0 through to 8 being the most expensive card in this starter set. This is the province worth 8, duchy is worth 5, and estate is worth 2. On the money side here, coppers are worth nothing. We'll get into explaining more about those a little bit later. Silvers are worth 3, gold's worth 6. So as we go up in relative value, both in treasure and money, the relative cost will go up quite significantly. The kingdom cards also feature that, but they have a lot more detail on them regarding particular actions or effects that they have on both your hand or other players' hands as we play the game. Right, setting up. We take 7 copper cards each. That's our starting money pile. We take 3 estate cards each, and that makes up a starting hand. Now each player gets exactly the same setup of cards. We shuffle them, and you're going to do a lot of shuffling in this game because once you've used all the cards and need fresh cards, you start shuffling. And because initially you have so few cards, there's a lot of shuffling. As the game goes on, there's going to become quite a few cards in your deck that you build, typically anywhere between about 30 and 50. I have seen 60 something it was, and I'm sure that somebody might stretch out to 70 depending on how you play the game. Right, so having shuffled it, we place our deck here on our left, upside down so that we can't actually see what's there, and we take the top 5 cards into our hand. Now, normally when I'm introducing people, I make the game less interactive and play with an open hand. So I'll show you what I've got. In this hand I've got 2 estate cards and 3 coppers. The estate or any of the victory cards have no value during play. They don't do anything. There is some cards that make use of them in the form of ways of getting more cards, but basically they don't help your current hand. So the only other cards that are in use are the money cards or action cards that you might have in your deck. Now initially you're not going to have any action cards, so initially it will just be these treasure cards, the coppers. You make a purchase and in this case I would have 3 to spend, and I might decide to buy either say a silver for 3. I could buy an estate card, which might sound good adding more green cards, but we'll get into that later why that's not necessarily a good move to start with. And there are a number of cards here. We have Cellar, Moat, Chancellor, Village, Woodcutter and Workshop. All very good cards individually, and in combination with each other potentially even more so. Which one's the right one? Each player has to develop a strategy and learn about how to best use the cards in relation to others. So, for example, I'll take this one to start with. I collect my cards and put them to the side, and I deal 5 more cards ready for my next hand. Meantime, play goes round the table to the other players and comes back to me, and I have my next hand and do pretty much the same thing. The turn sequence is summarised in the rules as simple as A, B, C and D, the 4 simple steps. I think they stop at C, but I've added D because it just seems more logical. A is for actions, and initially you can only play 1 action card once you get action cards into your deck. So 1 action card. Some of the action cards allow you to perform more actions, and that's great, but you've got to get them. So unless your hand contains a card that says you can play more than 1 action, you're stuck with a limit of 1. B is for buying, and you simply total up all the value of whatever your purchases are from your declared wealth, and some action cards actually include additional money which you can use to buy. Some of the action cards also allow you to buy more than 1 thing. So a limit to remember with your buying is that you are limited to buying 1 only card, unless you have an action card which says you can make more than 1 buy, and that's denoted by the line on the card that says +1 buy. So if a card that had +1 buy would thereby allow you to buy 2 cards, and ideally you would want to have a lot more money before you start buying more than 1 card at a time. The last part is, well, we better do a buy actually. Here we go. I'll buy the Chancellor. I would do my buy, and then we do cleanup. Cleanup is when we take all the cards that have been played and all the cards that might still remain in our hand which we have not declared that we've played, and we put them in our discard pile over here. The discard pile is face up so that we can remember that they're the used or expended cards, and now we have no cards in our hand and we have no cards over here, so we need to look at D, which is dealing. First of all, we're going to have to shuffle our cards. Now, for those of you with a mathematical mind, you will immediately have figured out that we now no longer have 10 cards. So we have 12 cards. So before we need to deal again, we're going to get 2 and a little bit hands out of this. So we take the top 5 cards. And here's a very different hand from the last ones. We have nothing green. So we'd make a buy of 5, and I might take I might take the market. Make the purchase, put aside. And that's how the game plays. Simple. You'll catch on to this in no time. Just follow the A, B, C, D. A for action, B for buy, C for cleanup, and D for deal yourself some new cards. Couldn't be simpler.